Hi, good morning. Paulo Coelho once wrote in his best-selling book, The Alchemist, then when you really want something, the entire universe conspires you in helping you achieve it. But here's the secret. Before the universe conspires, you must conspire with yourself. Because the universe does not deliver finished masterpieces. It sends us fragments, raw, rough, fragile, invisible to everyone except you. And if you dare to hold them with faith instead of fear, within those fragments lies gold. This hourglass is a reminder that every idea has its moment. If you flip it too soon, the flow breaks. If you wait too long, the moment passes. So the real alchemy lies in knowing when to turn it. This one says, a spark worth keeping. That's what fragments are. Sparks. They do not light the fire, yet they remind us that it is very much possible. Have you ever had an idea that knocked you gently? Not like drum roll, not with fireworks, but just like a whisper? That late night thought? That scribble on the tissue paper? That inner voice that said, what if? You know, ideas rarely arrive shouting. They arrive shy, like guests at the door. And if you don't receive them with attention, they go away. Have you ever seen a sculptor looking at a block of marble? While others see stone, he sees possibility. You know, that's what it means to hold an idea. Others see weight, but you see wings. But not every idea is capable of becoming something extraordinary. Remember Segway? Hailed as an innovation that would change the cities forever? Brilliant technology, but very poor narrative. Maybe the world wasn't ready for it. Maybe the sidewalks weren't built for it. It was a clever idea, but it lacked empathy. And that's what happens when an idea does not have empathy. It cannot take shape. It will forever remain stone, never the sculpture. But it's not just the ideas that remain unshaped. Sometimes we do too. One night, I sat down with my journal. Not to perform, not to persuade, but just for an honest reflection. And I wrote a line. Maybe this path isn't meant for me. Maybe my voice doesn't matter. No, it wasn't a breakdown. It was simply data from the inside, a fragment I hadn't dared to say aloud. I closed it quietly, like putting a question back in the jar. The next morning, I didn't see failure. I saw a mirror telling me not who I was, but who I was afraid to become. And if I could hold that reflection, I could also choose the story to carry forward. So that line didn't weaken me, it clarified me. And that's the thing about fragments. They don't ask for certainty, they ask for presence. In that moment, I also realized that retreat isn't the opposite of progress. It's simply the tide gathering strength for its return. And when it does not apologize for all the time it took. It comes back fiercer, fuller, and calmer than before. And that is where the idea gains strength. Every courageous idea, every powerful voice passes through 3 sacred stages, which I call the alchemist flow. Stillness, where the idea is found. Because in today's noisy world, reflection itself is rebellion. Courage, where the idea is shaped. It is the courage which forges the gold. Every voice is first feeble before it becomes strong. Connection, where the idea is shared. You know, the minute your story touches another life, it is no longer yours. It becomes ours. Stillness, courage, connection. That's the flow of the hourglass, and that's the flow of every idea worth spreading. So for a moment, please close your eyes and think of an idea you once abandoned. Something you really believed in, but you let go. And now think, what if that idea was what the world was waiting for? What if you could have been its only alchemist? Hold that thought. Now, the world didn't believe in mine when I first spoke about building a boutique storytelling consultancy firm. I remember in my very first storytelling workshop that I pitched, the client actually laughed and said, I don't believe in this. I don't see value in this. Stories don't sell. I remember coming out of the room heartbroken and even questioning the path that I had taken, whether it had any meaning or not. But fortunately, I kept going. Months later, a senior leader from the same organization happened to hear me speak at an industry forum. No, I wasn't selling a workshop. I was just telling the story of a small startup which had taken the power of narrative to win back the trust of customers when everything else had failed. After my address, he came up to me and said, oh, now I know what you mean. Can you do this for my team? You see, same organization, same people. And it's not that storytelling had suddenly become fashionable, but he could see its power raw and live. That's how ideas are spread, not through slide decks, not through algorithms, but simply through people and resonance. I once worked with a founder whose startup was on the brink of collapse. On the day of his investor pitch, he tagged me along and said, I've shown the numbers, I've explained the product dynamics, but nobody is listening. What do I do? So I told him, stop trying to be perfect and just tell them why this matters to you. So he went on the stage, and with a trembling voice, he said, I don't have all the answers. But what I can tell you is that I'm trying to build a product which keeps me and many others like me awake at night, and I'm not going to stop till the time I build it. The whole room went silent. And that's the day I had an epiphany. Investors don't fund spreadsheets. They fund conviction. And conviction is born the minute a raw truth is spoken in the form of a story. But you don't need investors and boardrooms to practice alchemy. It happens and it occurs in everyday life. Picture this. You are about to enter a very important meeting and coffee spills on your shirt. Now you have two options. You can enter the room carrying the embarrassment and the room will carry it for you, or you can enter the room with conviction and confidence and the room will rise to your presence. That's the true alchemy, when you turn a fragile moment into trust. Not formulas, not flawless surfaces. Confidence is not about spotless clothes. Confidence is about spotless intent, right? So, while I was learning about confidence in a meeting room, somebody else was living it in her living room. A small startup owner selling incenses and oils. She was very, very eager on Instagram, but on LinkedIn, she had zero visibility and zero reach. So when I first met her, I realized she's not selling a product. She's simply reclaiming her identity. After all, years of being a stay-at-home mother, she was so keen to get back on her feet and regain her financial independence. And you know what was the twist in her story? The in-laws, who are often caricatured as villains, were her biggest support system. Together, they had helped her convert a kitchen recipe into a brand. They became her anchor. So this story of heritage, resilience, and two-generation women building something together became the heartbeat. We shaped it post by post, story by story. Months later, on a very, very important pitching platform, they secured lakhs of funding. They called it funding, I called it fire. Because when empathy meets a story, ordinary people ignite extraordinary change. And that was my fragment too. The reason why I started it all. Because that day I realized I didn't belong in storytelling, I belonged to it. In helping her reclaim her voice, I found my own. And possibly that's why I'm standing here on this stage to tell you stories, not to impress, but to tell you stories to return us to ourselves. So, here's the truth I want to leave you with. Alchemy is not hidden in labs, libraries, or legends. It's found in the way you choose to frame your story. Every time when you shift from not enough to what's possible, you strike gold. Every time when you choose to own your narrative, you develop your inner voice, you become the alchemist. Because you know what? People in the end do not remember the script. They remember the fire and the energy that you carried in the room. Not your flawless delivery, but the fragment you choose to abandon. A fragment worth fighting for. That's what fragments are. They are not endings, they are planks. On its own, a plank looks very fragile, incomplete. But when placed one on the side of the other, they become bridges, carrying us through the impossible. You know, the world was not built by those who stood waiting at the shore. It was built by those who stepped forward, carrying the fragments in the hand, and trusted that the bridge would appear beneath their feet. So maybe the question is not that do I have the right idea? The question is, which bridge am I willing to build even before I can see the other side? Alchemy of ideas might sound mystical and ancient, but every time curiosity meets courage, reflection meets risk, alchemy of ideas is happening. Because the world is not suffering from lack of ideas. It's suffering from the lack of crossings never attempted. We don't need more perfect roads. We need more braver bridges. So the next time, when you have a fragment, don't just hold it, build with it. Because every bridge you dare to build can be somebody else's path to possibility. Thank you.